Welcome to Tuesday. It's the first day of October 2024. Hard to believe we're 9 months down this year. Headed into the last quarter of 2024. Anything new with the weather? No. We're stuck in gear, and we're going to be here for a little bit. As I'll mention here in a minute, our patience is going to really be tested, especially with the uptick in fire activity. The chances of precipitation, good soaking rains, mountain snows, it's just not in the cards at the moment, as we have a pattern across the northern hemisphere that's just kind of stuck, and it will be for another couple of weeks. We are going to see the only really changes in the weather being day-to-day fluctuations in temperatures. We'll have some warmer days, we'll have some cooler days, as we'll continue to see systems straddle the U.S.-Canadian border. And when that happens, they cause a little bit of wind to pick up. They'll cause temperatures to go up, then down. But the precipitation that you would want with these systems is just not there. So we're going to see temperatures back up today, tomorrow, temperatures down as we get into Thursday. And it's really 10-plus days where rain prospects are extremely low. Fire dangers are going to be extremely high. It's going to take a significant weather event to kind of turn things around. And we'll talk about when that might happen. So our patience is going to be tested here over the next couple of weeks if you're looking for precipitation. But we are actually looking at beautiful sunrises. The sky going to be providing a lot of opportunities for scenes like this across the region. However, we continue to have the fire situation, the elk fire up in the Bighorn Mountains, just a situation where things are tinder dry. And what we've seen with the increase in wind with these frontal systems is areas where maybe we thought the fires were down, or if there was a lightning strike that happened quite a while ago but was still smoldering, you get dry, you pick up the winds, and then you can get things started again. There's just no good news. I just don't have any good news when it comes to the fire situation in the region in terms of the fire dangers being really high or relief coming. And one of the big culprits is easily seen right here in the Gulf of Alaska. We got a deep low up there that is spinning around, the counterclockwise spin, and it's really not able to move. What it is able to do is spit out little disturbances like what you have right here. But as we've seen over the last week, these disturbances are wanting to be directed up and over and around the bigger ridge of high pressure that's in the western half of the United States. Remember, you have a low, you're going to have a high. Then you'll have a low again, then a high again. So the jet stream ends up looking like this. And so you have a semi-permanent high pressure ridge that's going to be parked over the Rockies in the western half of the U.S. as long as you have a stuck deep storm in the Gulf of Alaska or somewhere up there in that vicinity. And this pattern is just going to be very, very persistent. So it's going to be cool and wet up here, dry and very warm here. What we have to do is we have to reverse this configuration. And it has been cooler and wet up north. This is snow in the Canadian Rockies. It's starting to add up a little bit. If this is a satellite photo from yesterday, you can see the fire activity here and the fire activity here with the smoke plumes. There is snow forming in the northern Rockies and starting to accumulate, but it's all north of the border, as you can see there, because that's where the systems are going at the moment. So how do we change that dynamic? Well, as we go forward, this is where we are today. The low pressure systems up here remain. High pressure is going to be along the west coast, and we have a zonal flow generally west-east across the nation. That's going to give you at or above average temperatures along and east of the divide and west of the divide as well. This is by Thursday. There's a little weak low, little disturbance right here. So Thursday, that's why Thursday will be a little cooler. The winds pick up again. We have the Hudson Bay low here. We have the low in the Gulf of Alaska. We have this big high that is out in the North Pacific, helping to feed cold, moist air into the Gulf of Alaska and cause that semi-permanent area of low pressure there. By Saturday, we do have another one of these waves come out, but look what's still there. So if you go and just take a look at the pattern, you can just see that the low actually builds up again. So while it is sending out weather disturbances, it's Canada that's going to get into the action. South of the jet stream, it's going to be breezy at times, it's going to be dry, and it's going to be warmer than normal. And this will be really true for most of the lower 48. So this takes us through the weekend. This is out to 10 days. So take a look at, here's Saturday. Let's go 5 days out further. See this? There's no major change. The pattern is stuck in gear. We can't get it out of gear. What eventually happens is that as we go deeper into the month of October, the nights get longer, the days get shorter, you do start to see some changes. And we are seeing some changes that we're going to talk about with a new long-range model that just came out this morning from the Canadian model. We'll show you that here in a moment. But this is the 10-day precipitation forecast. This is a little bit of shower activity that may form with a couple of these waves going across southern Canada. But you can see Canada's moist, but the U.S. is not. Only in the far east and southeast. This is a very dry configuration for a lot of the U.S. over the next 7 to 10 days. Temperature-wise, temperatures over the next 10 days, see a lot of orange there, temperatures well above average. Now, we are going to see the month of October kind of split in half, the way things are looking. The first half of October, very warm and dry. The second half of October and November is when we're going to start to see things change. So basically, what I'm saying is it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks before we can get out of this stuck gear completely. It's not to say that maybe after 10 days things will get a little bit different, but I think it's going to be a solid 2 weeks before things really begin to change. This is the new Canadian model. Once a month, the Canadian model and the European model will update their long-range forecasts going out months at a time. Obviously, the further out you go, the less you're going to see these models being correct. But closer in, 30, 60, 90 days out, these do start to give you some hints. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step through the Canadian temperature forecast, starting with the month of October into the next few months here. And what you see is for the month of October, on the whole, through the 31st, warmer than average conditions in the west, a bit cooler in the east, which basically means the model is seeing high pressure in the west, low pressure in the east because of that low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. But this is really, I think, biased towards the first 2 weeks of the month. The second half of the month, things change as we get closer to November. So let's take a look at November. The Canadian sees a much different configuration. It is still warmer than average along and west of the divide, but not much. But you see the blue here spilling down the east side of the Rockies, the colder air coming. This doesn't look like much, but this is a cold pattern for the nation from the divide east, but also right along the divide. It's probably going to be cooler than it's showing there. What we're seeing is some changes that will be taking place the mid to latter part of October into November out in the Pacific that will get us unstuck. So I showed this type of graphic in the long-range winter outlook we posted last month. And what this represents at 500 millibars, kind of where a lot of the action takes place, is where the high and the low pressure systems are going to be. And where you see the red areas, you're going to have a high. Where you have a white or blue areas, that's where you're going to have the low. So what it's seeing here, the configuration of the pattern for the month of October is basically what we have now. Again, a lot of this I think is skewed for the first 2 to 3 weeks of the month. So what ends up happening is the jet stream pattern across the northern hemisphere basically goes like this. And then we have this ridge. So this is where we are right now. Right as we stand here on October 1st, what we have to do is we have to see these changes take place in the Pacific to realign things. So let's look at what happens in November. Watch this area right here. When we go to November, notice that we have a shift. The low pressure moves out of the Alaska area, and we're starting to see some weakness showing right here. So the configuration changes. So the jet stream starts to do this in the month of November. That's why the month of November has a much colder look. Look what happens in December and January. The high gets a lot stronger and really strong by January. And it's basically starting, it's a little bit further west, which would pull the colder air further west as well. So the new Canadian long-range trends are hinting at what we talked about in the winter forecast, which was a warm fall going into a much colder regime, and it looks like it's later in October and certainly by November when it's going to happen. So I know this is far out from now. This does not help us in the short term whatsoever, but there are changes coming, but our patience will be tested. We'll see you on Wednesday.